You know the smell, you have known it since childhood probably. The particular cold that lives in the corner of a bedroom wall. The ceiling stain that appears every winter, gets painted over in spring, and comes back the following November in exactly the same place, but slightly larger. The window that hasn't closed properly since 2009, and the landlord said he'd sort it and then didn't, and then you stopped asking. Britain has 29 million homes. Around 4.3 million of them are classified as non-decent, meaning they fail basic standards for safety, warmth, or structural condition. That is more non-decent homes than there are households in Scotland and Wales combined. And the reason they are falling apart is not that Britain lacks the money or the tradespeople to fix them. It is that the system built around British housing was never designed to make anyone fix them at all. The deterioration of British housing begins with the physical fabric of the buildings themselves. The United Kingdom has the oldest housing stock in Europe. 38% of all UK homes were built before 1946, and more than 20% date from before 1919. While wartime destruction forced countries like Germany, France, and the Netherlands to demolish and rebuild, constructing modern estates where post-war properties now make up 70% of their national stock, Britain preserved its historic architecture. This means millions of families still live in Victorian and Edwardian structures. These properties built before 1919 were constructed under entirely different building philosophies. They were built without cavity walls, damp-proof courses, or loft insulation as standard features. When these traditional solid wall homes are retrofitted with modern sealed central heating and double glazing, that air circulation stops. The building can no longer breathe, trapping daily humidity inside the solid masonry. The physics of coal-era brickwork and modern heating are structurally incompatible, turning ordinary living into a constant battle against condensation, structural damp, and persistent mould. In 1980, the introduction of the right to buy policy fundamentally altered how public housing was managed and funded. Over the next 4 decades, tenants purchased 2.5 million council homes, but this privatization was highly selective. The newest, most desirable, and easiest to maintain properties left public ownership first. Meanwhile, central government rules required councils to hand over a significant portion of these sales receipts, while strictly limiting how the remaining funds could be spent. Local authorities were legally prevented from using these proceeds to maintain their existing estates. This fiscal squeeze left councils managing a residual pool of housing that was disproportionately older, harder to heat, and highly expensive to retrofit. The resulting funding gap created a decades-long backlog of deferred maintenance. This chronic structural neglect culminated in the refurbishment of Grenfell Tower in 2016, where contractors applied combustible aluminium composite cladding to a high-rise building whose underlying structure had already faced decades of underfunded safety and structural upgrades. The cosmetic addition masked an unaddressed vulnerability that had accumulated across the social housing sector for nearly 40 years. The Landlord and Tenant Act, 1985, places a clear, legally binding duty on private landlords to maintain a property's structure, exterior, and core services like water, gas, electricity, and sanitation. Yet this statutory protection only functions when it is actively enforced. The burden of policing these standards does not happen automatically. It falls entirely on local councils. Since 2010, local council environmental health teams have been cut by 35%, leaving depleted departments with fewer inspectors to investigate hazardous properties. For tenants, demanding repairs has historically carried a severe personal risk. For roughly 40 years, Section 21 no-fault evictions allowed landlords to evict tenants with just 2 months' notice and no stated reason, serving as an effective deterrent against reporting damp, mould, or structural defects. While the Renters' Rights Act 2025 finally outlawed the use of Section 21 on May 1, 2026, decades of silent compliance have left a severe physical legacy across the country. Shelter estimates that 2.7 million privately rented homes contain a Category 1 hazard under the Housing Health and Safety Rating System, the most severe classification, representing an immediate serious threat to the health and safety of those living inside who have no other viable housing options. 19 million homes in England are currently rated Energy Performance Certificate Band D or below, requiring substantial physical upgrades to meet basic thermal standards. Yet efforts to scale up national insulation programs have repeatedly faltered. In September 2020, the government launched the Green Homes Grant to subsidise these upgrades. 9 months later, the scheme was abruptly cancelled. While ministers had allocated £1.5 billion to the programme, administrative hurdles and low uptake meant only £315 million was actually spent. In its place, targeted assistance has devolved into smaller, fragmented schemes. The energy company obligation, known as ECO4, provides insulation and heating upgrades, but it remains strictly means-tested. At its current pace, ECO4 reaches roughly 100,000 homes each year, a rate that would take decades to address the millions of energy-inefficient properties. This delivery pace stands in a sharp contrast to the actual scale of the challenge. The Climate Change Committee estimates that a full national retrofit will cost £250 billion over 25 years, requiring an investment of approximately £10 billion annually. Currently, public spending on home insulation and heat upgrades sits at under £2 billion a year, leaving a multi-billion-pound funding deficit that locks millions of households into cold, decaying homes. A physical repair crisis in a British home rapidly transforms into a financial deadlock. Mortgage lenders require buildings insurance as an absolute condition of lending. Yet insurers are increasingly excluding the most common structural failures, damp, rot, and ground movement from standard policies. Where climate risks are highest, the market is retracting entirely. In clay soil regions and floodplains across Worcestershire, East Yorkshire, and the Thames estuary, a rise in subsidence claims has prompted insurers to withdraw coverage or to price premiums beyond reach. Without valid buildings insurance, a property becomes completely unmortgageable. This halts any potential transaction. Homeowners cannot sell, prospective buyers cannot secure finance, and banks will not advance the equity needed to fund remediation. Trapped in this financial lock, owners are unable to raise the capital required to stabilize their foundations or fix structural defects. The home is left to decay, its physical ruin accelerated by its financial isolation. The physical decay of British housing translates directly into a public health crisis. NHS England estimates that treating illnesses caused by damp and cold homes costs the health service £1.4 billion every year, driven by respiratory illnesses, cardiovascular conditions, and mental health strain. For children trapped in these non-decent properties, the consequences are immediate. They are twice as likely to suffer from asthma and 3 times as likely to develop recurring chest infections. The ultimate toll of these systemic failures is measured in winter. England and Wales record 17,000 excess winter deaths annually. Even Portugal, which experiences colder average winter temperatures, maintains a lower excess winter death rate than England, revealing how deeply Britain's domestic thermal failures run. Deteriorating housing has become normalised as an everyday private struggle, yet its true cost is collective, measurable, and fatal. If this story interested you, there is a video right here about why British homes are so small. Subscribe to follow these systemic investigations. Until structural reform overrides short-term incentives, the British home remains a health hazard disguised as an investment. If this story interested you, there is a video right here about why British homes are so small. Subscribe for more stories like this.